I will call to order the Senate Appropriations Committee meeting Wednesday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Ash Wednesday. At noon, folks, I apologize for the hour. We got done late in the Senate, and I wanted to give these folks a chance to grab some lunch, so we moved it to 12:45. We have 5 matters: Senate File 38, financial reporting; Senate File 60, 2024 large project funding; Senate File 90, state managed local government; Senate File 70, investment modernization; and a re-referral Senate File 13. Since we have one of our colleagues here, Senator Landon, I'm going to take these bills out of order, and we will first take up Senate File 60, 2024 large project funding. Welcome, Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good to see you this afternoon. Appreciate you working us in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee for large project funding. This just a couple of observations, overviews, Mr. Chairman, and then the directors alongside to walk us through what these 3 major projects are. You'll remember that we have a threshold that anything over the top of that particular amount, I think it's 400,000, we come to the legislature for that kind of approval and sanction. The funding committee, I want to say, had an interim where we spent some time with some of the projects from this trust, and it has been a privilege to serve back on that committee and serve as the chairman. We were up in the northwest part of the state, and it's absolutely remarkable some of the projects that have been accomplished, and we got to look in on those. Just a second comment would be, I went away from the summer. These projects are targeting some of this concern that we have, but you know, to be real honest, we've got plenty of issues with our wildlife and natural resources here in the state. We find ourselves at a time when our wildlife populations are under stress. We spent time up on Whiskey Mountain talking about what are we going to do with our bighorn sheep, one of the iconic figures, you know, in the state. So anyway, much that we got accomplished, and we have some good stuff to show you today. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to the director, and he can walk you through the bill. So, thank you,
Director Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think we can do this pretty quickly. We have 3 large projects this year. They are all landscape scale, big, large projects. The first is the Upper Grable Fish Passage. This is a part of the state we've been working on for several years. These are native cutthroat trout and some other native species that have been cut off from their historic spawning grounds for a number of years. The reason that's important is it plays against the Endangered Species Act. It's one of the things that people will use to say these fish can't get where they used to spawn, therefore they're endangered. We have added hundreds of miles of spawning stream in the last few years. This is the last piece of that project. And it does 2 things. One is it opens up all of those areas that were cut off primarily by irrigation infrastructure that was probably over-engineered. The new engineering allows fish to pass through, still retains the effectiveness of the irrigation need, and enhances the stream habitat both inside the stream and adjacent to it. The other thing it does is it restricts non-native fish that have been getting into some of those headwaters, those spawning areas. So this project does both. It keeps the bad guys out, gives the good guys more places to spawn. It saves between 20 and 48,000 fish per year that were being entrained. That's how many fish we were losing. And if you look at that again and weigh that against things like claims made against the Endangered Species Act, going in and saying there's 48,000 fish that aren't in danger every year, that's a significant impact to our fishery. If you have questions on that one, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take them. If not, I'll move to the second.
One of these re-engineered fish passages, do you know of one that's near me up in Sheridan Johnson? I'd like to see him.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know one like this that's near you, but I would be happy to take you up and show you ones on the Wood River and on the Great.
Okay.
There are numerous different methods of doing this. Some of them you can create a side channel that the fish can access and go up depending on the grade. The one on the Wood River, the grade is significant. So they actually engineered a ladder that goes around and the fish go up, back, up. They basically do what we do in the airports.
Okay.
But they work great and they're all engineered for what the grade and the type of fish, the species of fish are.
Well, my interest is not only the fish, but we're trying to make the big goose floatable. And, you know, we've got some diversions there that, you know, I'm hoping that landowners would allow us to re-engineer those things so that people can get through. As it is, they've got a right of portage, but I think they'd much rather that, I don't know, on these fish ladders, maybe you still have to portage, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it depends, but I'd be happy to get out of the country with you and look at them and look at the different designs.
Okay,
A lot of them you can, if you use a side channel, you can actually use that. You may have to drag your raft a little ways,
Okay.
but yes, I'll be happy to do that.
thank you.
The second is the Bag Valley Headwaters. This is phase 3. The one thing I would call out there is you'll see a different number in the bill between the total amount that's allocated and the amount that's allocated this time. That's because it didn't meet that $400,000 threshold in the first 2 phases. It now did exceed that, so we bring it to you. It's cumulative. We don't let people come in and play games and piecemeal things and say, well, we're only at 350 and then come back next year with phase 2 and it's 200. That's 550. It's not 2 separate projects. So this one continues. This is a really amazing project. We went out and looked at that again this year. It's removal of encroaching primarily oak brush, but it's also treatment for aspens that are decadent. You go in and cut those down and they'll sprout thousands of sprouts. It's treating sagebrush and it's removing invasive annual grasses, cheatgrass primarily in Carbon County. This project has tremendous benefits for mule deer. That would be the primary target, sage grouse and Columbia sharp-tailed grouse. It's on about 150,000 acres. That includes BLM, state, and private lands. The BLM treats most of theirs. That's the match you see in these. We get tremendous leverage out of these. We're running, you know, $5, $6 back for every dollar that we expend as the state. And that comes in when you can get these large landscape scale projects. You got BLM money coming in, you've got NGO money coming in, Forest Service money, NRCS money, our money, and you do millions of dollars worth of work quickly and effectively. So this one is a rangeland enhancement and as I said, about 150,000 acres, sagebrush, grassland, and shrubland, crucial mule deer area.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, with the shortage of manpower, this sounds like it would take quite a little bit of manpower. How do we do that? What kind of manpower do you use?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, one of the advantages we have with the Wildlife Trust is that we can aggregate projects. And so you get manpower because they know they're going to have work to do for an extended period of time. The other thing it does is increase the efficiency. If you think about a lot of the treatment on the invasives is done with helicopters. So the more acres you can do with a helicopter, you're paying for helicopter time, but you're not paying for mobilization time every time you're doing massive areas. That's the advantage we have in Wyoming when we do this. We don't have to go out and look at it and say, okay, well, we can do 500 acres and next year we'll do 500. No, we're doing 150,000 acres. Your contractors want those contracts. They don't want to bounce. As an example, we did one in the southern part of your county. And for years we'd do a little bit and they'd say, well, when we get done in Oregon, we'll come and see what we can do. And we're on the shoulder season. Now, when you go in and say, no, we're going to have you working from May through October, they're there. They don't have to remobilize. They don't have downtime moving from one job to another. So that's the efficiency that we gain here.
And I'd add, if you've never been on one of those spray helicopters, it's a ride like none you've ever seen before. Yeah. It's a video game on steroids, the way they do that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you need a bareback rigging, you know, to stay in there, but that's.
Well, my pilot goes, hey, just keep looking up for some wires and yell real loud if you see something.
Mr. Chairman, the third and final one is a Seminole Shirley habitat. Again, this is an extension of work that started on Casper Mountain and Muddy Mountain in 2007. It just continues to grow as more and more landowners get involved. This one is a multiple pronged, it's sagebrush rejuvenation. That's primarily through mowing, which creates leader growth. That's a benefit for deer and antelope particularly, but also sage grouse. It's removal of invasive conifers, which enhances aspen habitats. It's a very strong focus on invasive annual grasses. It also includes what are called Z-dike structures, which go into small eroded gullies. You've probably seen those. Those Z-dike structures then allow that gully to heal, and that turns it into a small mini wetland, which are used by numerous species of birds, but in particular in this area it'd be sage grouse. This one is 320,000 acres. It's mule deer habitat, it's antelope, there are elk there. Lots of grassland birds, which are a concern right now in the country. Anytime we do these in sagebrush, there is a list of species of greatest ecological concern. We're hitting about 72 of those with every one of these projects. Those are the sagebrush obligats. And so it ranges everything from very small rodents to songbirds to sage grouse to deer, goes right up that trophic chain and is very impressive. This is a project you will see again because this is probably, we're in the middle of this one and it'll expand to the east. We'll work all that Laramie Range and all that stuff basically between Casper and Medicine Bow. That's all included in here. But they're tremendous projects. They really are what the epitome of our large projects are. I think they're the culmination of a dream for many people. You get landowners working together, you get numerous agencies that have never really worked together, working together, and you bring millions of dollars to the landscape. So those are the three large projects this year, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I really like that mowing the sagebrush for rejuvenation. That really works. But is the invasive grass, can you kill it by mowing it?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, no. We treat the invasives with, and I think you'll recall from our JAC meeting, I talked about the new chemicals called Rejubra is the name, it's in Dataflam. And that's what you use to treat those invasives. Then when you do the mowing, what you've done is remove that understory of those invasive animals. You've given your perennial native grasses and forbs a chance to grow, but you also created a seed site for sagebrush and you've liberated the water. There's a lot of what that does. Liberate the water so that those plants can grow more leader growth, more nutritious food for deer, things like that.
Thank you.
What is it that liberates the water mowing the sagebrush?
Mr. Chairman, what liberates the water is you take cheatgrass as an example, or in your case, it'd be
Medusa head,
and
ventonata.
ventonata. They're almost mat formed and they're very shallow roots. So if you get a rain, they get the first shot at it and it doesn't soak in. So if you can remove that impediment or that capture for that water, then it actually gets your water cycle to work the way that it should. And then that feeds your sagebrush and it feeds your native plants and that keeps your system intact. So that's been a game changer for us.
It's fascinating. I did want to take a moment to recognize Representative Andrew Byron of Lincoln Teton. Welcome, Representative, and former Representative Schwartz seated behind you. It's good to see you, Andy. Welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, I was remiss in not recognizing one of your committee members, Senator Drew, who served with us on this particular committee as well. So
I understand from an early age, it's been all about wildlife, so. Right?
And grass.
And what? Okay, anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the last thing I'd like to point out, I think it's something that sometimes goes unnoticed, is the power that these projects have to unite people is really, really compelling. When you get one or two landowners who say, we're gonna do wildlife friendly fencing and we're gonna get rid of the invasive grasses, And then the neighbors say, well, we want to do that. And then the Game and Fish comes in and says, hey, we'll help pay for it. It creates an incredible amount of synergy out there. And we see that all over the state, where you had cases where it was neighbor against neighbor and you had, you know, all of that going on. This has really eradicated a lot of that. So it creates a very powerful future for our state, but it's about the people who get it done. So appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a good commentary. Senator Guru?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And it's been great to serve on this committee. And I got to tell you, last year we were on our road trip, we were looking at one you really ought to look at, a little fish ladder deal where 11 ranchers came together, made their diversion water storage dam narrower, taller to allow this to be built. I had that whole explanation. I was dumbfounded by the fact that 11 ranchers in Wyoming agreed on anything. And so I never really, I had to go back and hear the story again later, but that part alone, and to bring that many people together, it was truly amazing. So Bob and Ms. Wassenberg do a great job. Talk about a good group.
I think both of you, all of you, for your service on that committee. Sheridan and Johnson County have been the beneficiary of this large project funding and the trust, but I've never actually been to a committee meeting. I've just seen the outcomes, and even projects of a much smaller scale still have the effect of bringing the community together. A lot of the creek restoration that we did in Sheridan, you know, it's people are still enjoying that, and it's a tremendous benefit to the community.
It's really paid off, Mr. Chairman. I can remember the birth of this thing and really commend the Appropriations Committee over the last 2 or 3 years to continue to get that corpus up there. And boy, every little piece of this has just played a big role in what we know and love about Wyoming. And it's really been one of the success stories of the legislature and of course the department under Mr. Budd's directorship. So
Thank you. Anything else, gentlemen? All right, since we are the primary committee on this bill, at this point, I would open it up for public comment. If anybody wants to, any member of the public wants to comment on the bill? Anyone? All right, I'll close public comment. It's to the committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any amendments? Any changes? All right, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Guru,
Aye.
Senator Nethercott.
Excused.
Senator Salzar registered his vote today as an aye, and Chairman Kinsky.
Aye. All right, that bill-
Senator, or Chairman Kinsky, it's Senate File 60 passes with 4 ayes.
Thank you. All right, Bill, thank you very much. We'll see you out on the floor.
Appreciate it.
All right, with that, I'm going to circle back to the top of the agenda, and the next matter for our consideration is Senate File 38, Financial Reporting Amendments 2. And are we the primary committee on this one as well?
I think so.
We are, all right. Do we have,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
this may surprise you, but I happen to be a member of this committee. So if you
All
need
right.
help with that, just let me know.
all right. Well, you can walk us through from there.
Do you want me to sit here and do it? Or
Yeah,
you-
you're fine.
Okay.
Just pull your mic a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pull your mic.
Oh, you might, Mike. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring you financial reporting amendments number 2, sponsored by Management Audit Committee. Our chairman, Senator Barlow, must be detained somewhere doing important business. And so I'll try and pinch hit for him. This bill came from Management Audit Committee, and we've kind of gone around and around on this committee with this. You know, we had a rule asking all small districts to do an audited financial statement. We received a significant amount of pushback on that idea, and we talked about the smaller groups that would have to spend an inordinate amount of money to achieve that goal. Your Management Audit Committee, though, was very concerned and wanted to make sure that the point got driven home that we need to have transparency, we need to have adequate financial reporting. And we didn't want to, necessarily hurt people in a financial way to do it. So as you know, we then kind of pivoted to rules about getting training. And I know there's been a little pushback on that one as far as the amount of training that has to be done. We are doing our best to work with folks to try to streamline that, but the last piece came from this bill and just kind of walk you through it. You know, it just talks about financial reporting on page 1, and it's basically what this bill does, as I recall, is that if you become out of compliance in your reporting, that you will not be eligible to get funding from state agencies, SLIB board, the legislature, until you're brought into compliance. And so that's basically what this bill does. And I stand for any corrections on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what all this bill does. Writing into show, looking through and say I'm pinch hitting. So it's like, but that'll be to answer any questions.
Sounds sensible. Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, this first talks a lot about county, city, or town, but then that paragraph starting on page 2 at line 12 starts talking about districts. Isn't it for cities, towns, and counties and districts?
Yes,
Isn't everybody included in this?
I believe so, yes.
Those first 2 paragraphs would
Sounds like-
indicate it's just city, town, or county.
Tell you what, let's see, people are here to give public comment. I'll just keep that question, if we could hear that, and then if we lay it back for a day and then I can get answers for these questions, or, we move forward, or maybe some of the folks coming up to testify might be able to.
I don't know. Maybe it just needs
Tell me how bad it is. So, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? All right, if not, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any member of the public here on Senate File 38? Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Whoa, that worked. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Jim Willix, Converse County Commissioner here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. To answer the question of Senator Anderson, there is 2 parts to this bill. The first parts of the bill really apply to cities, towns, and counties, and it's the appropriate section. And then the last page deals with special districts. And I can tell you that we haven't taken formal decisions, but the first part of the bill, if you're not compliant, the money's withheld. That seems reasonable. I think one of the questions that this body needs to look at is the timeline that's laid out in page 6, if you will, lines 4 through 10, the additional language there. The way the current timeline works, and I may get this off by a little bit, but the budget by special districts is submitted by the end of July. Commissioners certify all mills first part of August. This bill says in October, the Department of Audit tells the Department of Revenue, and then you have to be in compliance by December 30th. And if you're not in compliance by December 30th, the commissioner shall not approve the mill levy 8 months later in August. I'm not sure that was the intent of this amendment. The timeline, it says of the same calendar year on page 10, or I'm sorry, line 10, it may be clear to say preceding calendar year. It's a little bit open to interpretation. What I'm saying is I understand the goal, but I'm not sure the timeline in this language works for what's trying to be done. I would also note that there is a companion bill out there, Senate File 74, that addresses the commissioner's ability to deal with those districts that are out of compliance and then having a path to get them back in. If you cut a district off that is a fire district, hospital district, a water district, and they can't collect any money because of this, it's almost impossible to get them back on their feet. And most of these are volunteer districts, and Senator Guru, you're correct. There's been a lot of effort in the big staffed districts don't have as many problems as these small volunteer ones, but they provide critical services. So today, I would recommend that you not adopt the page 6 language till we fully understand the timeline. I think the rest of it is appropriate. And cities, towns, and counties are not in compliance, we shouldn't get the money, and we all have staff to be able to deal with it. And cities, towns, and counties have been in compliance for quite a while. I don't know if there's been one they gotten the notice get in compliance, they do. So Mr. Chairman, I'm not an expert on this, but I do think the main body of the bill is acceptable. I think that last page needs some tweaking and more expertise than I could bring to the table.
Well, and we've got other people behind you that might be able to help us. I guess I'd say this, if I were on the county commission, I'd rather certify in December that they got a problem and then they'd have that many months to get in compliant and get recertified, right? Because if this notice came to you the week before you certify their mill levy, and then 3 weeks later they're in compliance, they still don't have a mill levy for the rest of the year. I don't think you can go back and say, King's X, we're going to approve your mill levy now.
Mr. Chairman, that's part of the timeline concern. If they're not in compliance on December 31st, it says in 8 months later, we can't certify. So it doesn't give them the grace period in that next month to comply, because I think we want them to comply. But it says if they're not in compliance on December 31st of 23, we can't approve their mill levy in August of 24, even if they get in compliance
I
in that
see.
intermediate time. It's the way I read that language
Got you.
currently.
So it could be a sentence, unless subsequently you receive certification that they've come into compliance.
Correct.
Something like that.
And
Okay.
Senate File 74, I think, helps address that.
Okay.
I believe Senator Cooper is the main sponsor. on
And then
that.
we've got the Department of Revenue here too. We can find out what the current penalty is. Anything else for
Yeah,
Wilcox?
and I think Commissioner Wilkes is, his comments are well taken. I do think maybe we just have a little issue on trying to make sure we get this language right. I too want to talk with Senator Cooper about his bill. It was not our intent to hamstring anybody. Our intent was just get people in compliance on this, with the very important issue is that we've just talking with the Department of Audit, we've just had a number of just small districts that are have trouble getting in compliance. We write a lot of letters and don't get many responses. And so we knew this would catch everybody's attention. It has. And so that's kind of what we were actually trying to do. So make sure people know how important it is to make sure their financial house is in order.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, fear is a great motivator. But I do think companion wise, I think we can get there, Mr. Chairman, Senator Green.
All right, thank you.
I'll be
Thank
around
you.
if there's more follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Further, anybody else from the public? How about the department?
Come on, Director.
Mr. Chairman, Brenda Henson, Director of the Department of Revenue. It's a pleasure. On this particular bill, you'll see that the main function of the Department of Revenue is to withhold the money if we are notified by the Department of Audit that a city, town, or county is not in compliance. We worked with Management Audit to fine tune that language because obviously we're doing monthly distributions. And when we do a distribution, we are sending all of the tax, the sales, use, lodging, cigarette, all of that. And so what this legislation does is allow us to basically hold those checks until we are notified by the Department of Audit that they are in compliance. So it's a little bit easier related to the Department of Revenue and our ability to withhold those payments. And we hold on to them. It's not like that money goes away. Once that entity is in compliance, we can go ahead and distribute those funds. Related to the last page of the bill that talks about the county commissioners, Commissioner Wilkes is absolutely right in that mill levies are established once a year. So you really don't have that opportunity like a monthly distribution like we do at the state level. Perhaps it may be as easy as eliminating the deadline date at the end of that sentence, where it says by December 30th of that same calendar year, or maybe expand on it and say that after they're notified, no later than December 31st of that calendar year, it's stipulated that if they are in compliance by the first Monday in August, which is when the commissioners certify levies, that they can go ahead and certify those levies. So I think it could be adapted. And but certainly I know there's a county treasurer here and they can speak to it as well.
All right, anything else from Ms. Henson?
Madam Director, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
are you okay with just eliminating that paragraph 5? Rather than trying to clean it up?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, I believe that would be a question for the Department of Audit.
So the Department of Audit would know what penalties they have now, other than not certifying the mill levy. And the Department of Audit's here, right? Okay, oh, they're there. Okay, good.
Yes,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, our role is simply to withhold the distribution of those sales tax dollars to
Yeah.
those entities.
Thank you, Brenda.
There's a lever on the bottom of that chair. You can move that up.
My little Paul.
That's the guy next to you. He's sitting down low right.
Mr. Chairman,
Maybe
Michael
like-
Hanson, Administrator of the Public Funds Division for the Department of
Say
Audit.
again the name.
Michael Hanson.
Okay,
Couple things on this bill, I think. One, there's already language in statute that was passed last session, basically saying that state loans and grant funds would be withheld for non-compliant entities as of September 30th or October 5th. There was some confusion with state agencies as far as what actually constitutes grants and loans from the state. And I think the guidance we were given was that it would be up to each individual agency. And so this amendment to the bill is to clarify the language of what funds actually need to be withheld so that it's clear for everybody. And Senator Greer, guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that. That's what we talked about, management audit.
Mr. Chairman,
please.
what you're talking about so far is for city, towns and counties, right? Not necessarily for boards and withholding from them.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, the statute that's in place now actually addresses all of the municipalities and the special districts.
Oh,
So this just clarifies for all of them. And I think it goes on to clarify, disbursements from county treasurers for cities, counties, cities and towns and special districts as well. So,
Well, so I'm going to share my confusion with you on page 2.
Sir.
The top line talks about districts and entities. Subsection J, Department of Audit shall, and as Senator Anderson pointed out previously on line 9, it says a list of counties, cities and towns, so forth, doesn't talk about districts. Line 17, non-compliant county, city or town. And so I'm not sure how boards and districts get pulled in. Line 23, city, county, or town. Where do the boards and districts come in?
no, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
line 12 and page 3, where it goes into paragraph 4, I believe is where it starts talking about special districts or entities described in 16.4.125C.
Okay. Senator Anderson,
Mr. Chairman, and they're separated because they're funded differently, or that's why you have them pulled separately.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
okay. All right, that clears that up. Thank you. And can you solve the mystery on page 6 as to whether that paragraph is needed? What other remedies do you have if they're non-compliant? Because this is Romanet 5, it looks, so we're missing 1 through 4 as to what remedies you have if somebody is non-compliant. And maybe this isn't your department taxation rate.
Mr. Chairman, currently in statute, if a special district is non-compliant as of December 30th of the calendar year that the report is due, they're subject to dissolution by the county commissioners. And that's what's currently in statute.
That's about as bad as not getting your mill levy. Yeah,
One might say.
so it's dissolution, shot or hung is kind of the choices. Dissolution.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, anything else for Mr. Hanson? All right, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else here on this bill? We are on Senate File 38, Financial Reporting Amendments 2. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Fraser, Executive Director, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. And I just thought it was important to come get on the record in favor of compliance. And so we're supportive of this in so much as any entity that's making a good faith effort to comply has the time to do so. So I think this timing issues that you're dealing with, I think it'd be important to get that square. And I guess I would recommend erring on the side of caution. In other words, to make the compliance opportunity as long as possible rather than as short as possible. In other words, and again, you know, we want our folks to comply, and but we just want to make sure that somebody that's making good faith effort to comply is somehow not able to do so. We just want to give every opportunity to be able to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything for Mr. Fraser? Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I think I heard that the cities, towns and counties were complying, that we didn't have a big problem with that. It sounded more like it was more of the boards and commissions, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Thank you, Senator, Mr. Chairman. I believe that is correct. We do have, we have had members, and we deal, you know, we try to be as helpful to the Department of Audit as we can be. And in fact, be a good, I need to really thank them because they do a good job helping us and providing training and guidance. And so we really appreciate the effort that they take to do that. We do usually have a few members that make the list, that the warning list, I guess. I don't know what it's officially called. And then I think we usually do have a pretty good rate of compliance, you know, given that. But again, I guess I would feel the same way, whether it was a city or a county or a special district. I'd want to make sure that anybody who was really trying to comply was given an opportunity to.
So look, I need to catch, and Senator Drew, maybe you touched on this. Was part of this bill or of a prior bill, did it ease up on the requirement of having to have a certified audit? I mean, like the city of Sheridan has to have a certified audit. We spend a lot of money on our audits every year.
I don't know if it was a former piece of legislation, not I'm looking at you guys over, but we just, it was, I don't know if it was a rule or not, but we just got a lot of pushback from the reporting requirement to say you had to have a certified financial statement for just for a lot of the smaller districts, some small communities, and the good Director of WAM is right. We have had, you know, each year the department gets, you know, has their list of people that are out of compliance, and usually the cities, the towns, some of the smaller ones have some issues or something. They usually try their best to catch up. To be honest, there are just a few districts or a few small communities that just, those guys will write letters and they don't get an answer, and you know, it just kind of just goes on, and they're put in a tough bind. And to be honest, that's what, for everybody, that for the vast majority that are doing it right, it just something that's just difficult. So
I don't, Mr. Fraser, I don't know if you know this, or I have to go back to Mr. Hanson. Is there a divergence that if you're really small and poor, you just submit a report, I guess, but if you're larger, you have to go get a certified audit? Or is everybody held to the same standard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am aware that there is a difference, but I'm not prepared to tell you the specifics of it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there are different levels of reporting requirements for the different sizes of entities. So for instance, special districts that, you know, they receive or spend less than $25,000 per year. It's really just the annual census report that informs us what all their cash revenues and expenditures were for the year. And then there's an annual report summary, which is basically a certification that those numbers are correct and accurate to the best of their knowledge.
Self-certification.
Right.
Mhm.
And then it moves up from there between 25 and 100,000. There's another piece of follow-up paperwork that's due. It's a little bit more in depth, like proof of cash, you know, doing a reconciliation with bank statements, that kind of thing. And then between $100,000 and $500,000 per year is internal audit, a self-audit and an internal control assessment that they're required to submit. And then any entity that's subject to the Uniform Municipal Fiscal Procedures Act is required to have a financial statement audit.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just send us a memo, just a brief write-up on those 4 levels. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anything else, Mr. Fraser? All right, anyone else here to speak to Senate File 38? There you are.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Emily Parvasini, Sublette County Treasurer. And I can speak on behalf of those districts that are not in compliance. We as treasurers get a notification from the Department of Audit and we hold their funds. And they don't get funds until we are notified by the Department of Audit that they are back into compliance. And I'm not sure how the timeline works. I just recently received my notification from the Department of Audit that one of my districts was out of compliance. And it's February, so I'm not sure if that December 30th date really works or if you even need that end paragraph because we're already holding funds from them.
and I should know the answer to this, but if any district gets a mill levy, it's collected by the county, right?
Correct,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so turn off the spigot.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Oh, Mr. Chairman. So you're all right with us eliminating paragraph 5? And not
Mr.
having a
Chairman.
date in here?
Senator Anderson, correct.
So I presume you have there is current statutory authorization for withholding the funds, or are you just doing it because they tell you to do it?
Mr. Chairman, it's already in statute. We do not pay them distributions unless they're in compliance.
Okay, do we know what that citation is, Mike? Would you send us that citation? That'd be great to have.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
super. You drove all the way here just for that.
Just for that, Mr. Senator.
Okay, well, that was exciting. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to know. All right, anyone else on Senate File 38?
Mr. Chairman, just one
Yes.
quick thing to add in there. The wording in this bill also adds basically a clause for good cause if a special district or entity is unable to comply. And typically, I think the intent of that, or when we were talking about it in management audit, was for financial statement audits for those entities that are required to provide those to us. Because there is a lack of capacity within the state currently for CPA firms doing governmental audits. So there's a bit of a delay there. So at this point, what we're looking at for good cause would be, or good faith effort would be, an engagement letter from those entities.
I got you. And so why is it so hard to find somebody to do a governmental audit? Are your requirements too strict?
It would be I think the individual CPA firm's willingness to do governmental audits. I wouldn't be able to really speak to that, other than I don't think there's a high capacity or a large amount of them in the state currently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Anybody else on Senate File 38? Going once, twice? Comment period's closed. It's to the committee.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion or any amendments to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment.
Go ahead and turn your light on
Why don't I
there.
turn my
Yeah,
microphone on? Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the bill. I would like to eliminate paragraph 5 on page 6, starting on line 4 and ending on line 10. Eliminate the paragraph altogether.
okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it sounds to me like most of the people are already able to do this, and that date just caused a lot of confusion. So I want to just eliminate it.
Gotcha. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. Further discussion? All right, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Rue,
Aye.
Senator Nethercutt,
Excused.
Senator Salzar has voted aye, and Chairman Kinsky.
Aye. All
Chairman
right.
Kinsky, Senate File 38 passes due amended, 4 ayes.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. All right, next is Senate File 90, State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool. And is that what was Representative Byron here to present on that one? Oh, he's gone. Guess it's you again. Well, you've been working hard this session.
Yeah,
All right, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I don't think outside of the budget, I don't think I've carried 3 bills in my life, and now I've carried 3 in 2 days. Held to be popular. We bring you Senate File 90, the state managed equity investment pool bill, and I know there's folks here to testify on this. This bill came to me the way a lot of bills do. Someone came and asked me, and it was this time it was our cities, towns, counties who came to ask. And the bottom line on this bill is that we want, we have been working in CapFin in this committee on our total return policy in conjunction with our good friends across the way at the treasurer's office and the auditor's office. I see representatives from the treasurer's office are here. I saw the auditor was just here a moment ago. And so we've been working to do this, and everyone in the state has seen that with that, the good treasurer and working with him, and we've been able to take, $20+ billion, $26 billion, put it into our investment pools, different pools. But with our total return policies and policies that the treasurer's done, we've been able to create a scenario where 1 out of every $4 that comes to our general fund today comes from investment dollars. And so now our friends in cities, towns, and counties kind of saw that, want to get in on it. And to which, we say, okay, or at least I did. And so they came with this language. The language was sent to the treasurer's office. The treasurer's office submitted additions, changes, corrections, and helpful tips, all of which were incorporated, to the best of my knowledge, all were incorporated into this bill. And so that came to you, it passed introduction. And so that is the genesis of the bill. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks here to testify on it and try to help us make it a better bill, because it is not perfect. And as I said on introduction, did not ask the treasurer for their endorsement of this bill. We just asked them to make changes. And I look forward, just like you do, I'm sure, to hear their comments and helpful suggestions on how we can make it better.
Thank you, Senator Groove. So the first part of the bill, section 1 on page 1, creates this pool. That's all new. And then on page 3, section 2 amends existing language on investment of public funds by creating a new subsection. So it's a pretty simple bill.
Yes.
All right. And ultimately, it's no more than 1/3 of their money. That's what I'm looking at is on page 4. Oh, it shall be 1/3 local investment pool. Okay, more long-term redemption options. All right, I got you. Okay, sounds great. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, I'll open it up for first agency. Do we have agency comment here? Do we have any agencies? All right, no agency. Then we'll open up to public comment. Thank you, Mr. Fraser. Welcome back.
No love.
Please, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll choose the tall chair so I don't have to try to figure out how to work it.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, David Fraser, Executive Director, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. We appreciate your consideration of this bill. You don't need a history lesson, but just as a reminder, in 2016, as was mentioned by the good senator, the voters changed the state constitution to authorize the state to invest in equities. And the state has done that, again, as was previously just mentioned, and it's been wildly successful in doing so and in stretching those resources, which ultimately benefits the taxpayer. In 2022 election, the voters amended by a 57% margin. The voters again amended the state constitution to allow local governments to do the same thing. And so what this bill is simply authorizing the state treasurer to go ahead and execute what the voters authorized essentially in that constitutional amendment. There are certainly more than one way to skin that cat. Capital Finance had some discussion in the interim about different methods to do this. I understand that there's an intention to continue that discussion in this interim relative to, privately managed funds and different things that local governments may take advantage of. But this bill does not deal with any of that. This bill is a simple authorization of the state treasurer to invest local government funds sent to his office in the same manner as he does the state funds. And obviously for the same reasons, so that those local governments can stretch those tax dollars and ultimately benefit the citizens in that way. So again, it's a very simple bill. I don't believe, in the treasurer's office, I don't speak for the treasurer's office, but I don't believe this is reinventing the wheel. I think it's just, again, as it says here, creating a third investment pool that would be a little more aggressive and would include equities as the other two, Wildstar 1 and 2 do not.
What
that-
are Wildstar 1 and what?
2. Those are the existing, Mr. Chairman, those are the existing investment.
What current return you're getting on Wildstar 1 and 2?
I do not off the top of my head. I don't know if, yeah.
Just curious.
But I do know, and the treasurer's office may be able to speak to specifics. I do know it's significantly less than what the state is getting on return. So again, the intention of this is just to allow the local governments to get a greater return on those long-term investments. Now, they won't be, this fund is not, I don't believe will be very liquid. This isn't where somebody's going to put, their funds that they're going to use, it's not where somebody's going to invest where these local governments would invest their monthly money that they're going to expend on bills and payroll and that kind of thing. This would be longer term investments for endowment funds and those kind of things.
Okay. Thank you. Anything from Mr. Frazier? All right, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Jim Willicks, Converse County, here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. And like WAM, we were a strong endorser of the constitutional amendment and support this bill as step one. We call it Wildstar 3. Again, as Mr. Frazier, there's Wildstar 1 and 2 that have really short-term goals, short-term liquidity. Wildstar 3 may not be called that, but that's what we're kind of generically calling it. And this bill would be the longer-term one, and we do support that and like that idea. We do agree that this is step one. We believe there are more vehicles and more options we should be looking at, but we need to get this started because of the amendment and think this is a valuable step one, fully support it, and look forward to those opportunities to get a better return on our tax dollars. And it will, it could be everything from a few $100,000 to a few million, depending on the county's long-term goals. And as Mr. Frazier said, you want to do this purposely and with a plan, not thinking that it's going to be something that you are going to want immediately and with the same as the state recognizes. So we do endorse the bill, like it as step one, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Well, I'm curious, the language is very generic. During the discussions, was there talk as to how long-term this would be? An annual redemption, a quarterly redemption?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of those specifically, other than I think by creating this, then the treasurer gets to set rules and regulations. So Wildstar 1 and 2 have operating principles. So when you invest in them, one may say they're liquid in 30 days. It may say liquid in 6 months. So when we invest in it, the treasurer's rules and regs will tell us what that will inform us, tell us what the criteria. So no, it won't be in the statute. It'll be in the rules and regs that come out for what long-term is.
Okay.
So you go into it knowing what the rules are.
And then I'm curious on page 5, Mr. Willicks, he has the authority for penalties for early withdrawal. I'm wondering if there was just a lack of liquidity, would he be able to just refuse a withdrawal? Was that contemplated in the discussions?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Frazier may know too, I'm not aware of that. There are penalties if you violate the current ones as well. And that became an issue last year for us, and particularly in Wildstar. But yes, as long as the rules are clear up front, then we get to make an informed decision. Can't change the rules in the middle of the game.
What happened with the penalties in Wildstar 1?
Longer story than we probably need here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd be glad to visit with you, but
Sounds
probably
like a
not
good
not relevant to this good bill.
Sounds like a good one.
Mr. Chairman, it's a great rabbit hole, but we don't have time to go down.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else here on this
Thank you,
bill?
Mr.
Thank you. Welcome. Senate File 90, State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool.
Mr. Chairman, name is Devin Brubaker. I am the Airport Director for the Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport, representing the Wyoming Airports Coalition. I also wear several hats in my community, serving as a treasurer for our Travel and Tourism Board, serving on our Solid Waste District, and then obviously investing the funds of the Airport Board that I am employed by. We support in general this bill, but we do have, much like my colleagues that just spoke, serious reservations about government competing with private interests. And there are private investment pools that are available that do not have access to these same abilities to invest in equities. And I look forward to seeing that be made possible in the interim and in future discussions.
Okay, I appreciate that. Where's the Southwest Airport Board?
Rock Springs, Wyoming, sir.
And you have enough money that you have extra money to invest?
We do
You can
have.
come up and run our airport. I hope my airport wasn't listening.
Mr. Chairman, Robert Gill does a fantastic job for your community as your airport director.
Yeah.
And different circumstances, we're a joint powers board, separate from the county, so we do have our own funds.
Mhm.
Obviously, your airport is a county-run airport, so the funds are invested differently. So
Mr. Brubaker, just some food for thought. When I was mayor in Sheridan, my first resort was to the private market. And we had restrictions with public funds. When I asked private banks to bid, they had to put an equal amount of US Treasuries pledged to secure our funds in the event of default by the bank, which made it very hard for them to get much margin in. Whereas here we've got this, we're pooled with the entire state of Wyoming's assets. So I hear you. It's, I don't know what that vehicle would be. I have placed City of Sheridan money with local banks under those circumstances. A couple times, just nobody was interested. The margins were just too thin. So this was a good fallback for us.
yes, Mr. Chairman, and I agree. However, this body, the legislature, a few years ago created the opportunity for privately managed government investment pools. One does exist in the state of Wyoming currently called Wyoming Class, which many government entities are invested in. They do not have access to investing in equities. And so just as a comparative for that, allowing the state treasurer to invest local dollars in private equities, but not allowing the private sector that manages public dollars as well
I see.
to do the same creates, in my opinion, a little bit of an unfair competition where government is
Okay.
competing.
Well, maybe you could speak to your local senators and reps, and they can work on that in the interim, and we can see it next year. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought that to our attention. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brubaker. Okay, anyone else here on Senate File 90, State Managed Local Government Equity Investment Pool? Welcome. It's Valentine's Day and it's Ash Wednesday. I'm just waiting for word that the flowers got to my wife. I placed the order Monday for Tuesday delivery, and they called and they said this morning it ain't happening, so.
Hello, Mr.
Welcome.
And committee, my name's Dawn Williams. I'm Deputy State Treasurer. I'm joined today with my CFO, Katie Smith, and Patrick Fleming, our Chief Investment Officer, is joining via Zoom. There were a couple of questions. We just wanted to say that we don't, as Senator Guru said, we don't have a feeling one way or the other about this bill. We're happy to establish Wildstar 3. That is what we would call it. You are correct, Commissioner. There were a couple of questions about the Wildstar rates. Katie, those are published on our website monthly, and so Katie has those handy. I would ask Patrick to talk about the whether or not you can refuse a redemption of equities. I think that I don't think that we would probably do that. If a community wanted their money back, we would do our best to extricate ourselves from those investments, but there would likely be we also have discussed whether or not we would assess a penalty, but the penalty will be to the entity for sure in the loss of their investment by withdrawing before the maturity date. I'm still waiting for Patrick. So why don't we have Katie talk about those rates?
Hello, Katie Smith, CFO for the State Treasurer's Office. So yes, as the deputy had stated, the returns are published on our website every month. So as of 12/31/2023, the current yield for Wildstar 2 was 5.20%. And the current yield for Wildstar 1 as of 12/31/2023 was 5%. Now that's if all of the securities are held to maturity.
Nice to have cash worth holding on to again. Those rates, okay, and so what is the redemption restriction on 1 and 2?
There is no redemption restriction on 1 or 2. They can withdraw when they would like to. The only caveat is that if you withdraw, you are then subject to any gains or losses on that withdrawal.
Okay, and so 1 is just purely bonds, short-term instruments, and 2, it has no mix of equity in 2, is it?
Mr. Chairman, no, there's no equities into just a longer term.
Longer
for-
dated instruments,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right, and there's Mr. Fleming now. Welcome, Patrick.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick Fleming, CO for the Treasurer's Office. Yes, just two couple clarifications. Wildstar 1 is just a checking deposit, just a money market fund. Wildstar 2 is a corporate bond, short-term corporate bond fund. And then Wildstar 3 would just be a U.S. domestic S&P 500 tracker ETF, if you will. So it would not be in a mix of different funds. And as far as your question earlier about liquidity, it settles in a 2-day advance window. So the restriction on the fund is not because of liquidity restrictions. The key would be to make sure that, one, the entity had a large enough asset base to withstand 20, 30, 50, 58% correction like we've had in the last 4 bear markets, but also having other assets to be able to hold it. So we do not believe that this would be appropriate for all of the entities, and our intention is not to compete against any of the public sector. And just in fact, Wildstar 1 and Wildstar 2, there is no restriction. Anyone could do that. The one area that we do restrict are fees. We do not want people to take advantage of other entities and not knowing some of the markets, but we would put on a maximum fee restriction. Typically what it is it's the same type of fee that you're paying on the ETF. So for instance, the SPY, which is a common S&P 500 tracker ETF, it has an expense ratio of 9.5 basis points. There's 100 basis points in 1%. So it's a de minimis charge. And we would have something like that for local governments. If you wanted to go outside the state, you could do so. It would have to be into a broad-based tracker type fund, an ETF type of instrument that represents the entire market and would have a limitation on as 10 basis points. Something like that. I'm just talking in broad terms. Just the treasurer is very adamant about making sure to protect these local entities and not allow them to get themselves into trouble.
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Fleming or for the department? All right, thank you so much. Anyone else here to testify on this bill? Senate File 90? All right, I'm
Mr.
going to
Chairman.
close public testimony.
Just before Don takes it away, and Patrick, I just want to thank you all so much for your help and really appreciate your comments and your suggestions. Really helped us bill a lot. Thank you.
All right, Senate File 90 is to the committee. What's your pleasure? Okay, discussion, amendments? No? Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott, excused. Senator Salazar registered his absentee vote as an aye, and Chairman Kinski.
Aye.
Chairman Kinski, Senate file passes, 90 passes with 4 ayes.
All right, thank you. The next matter for our consideration is Senate File 70. That must be what everybody's here for. No? Oh, wow. Okay. I know how to clear a room. Senate File 70, Investment Modernization State Non-Permanent Funds, and I do not have a copy of this bill. Okay, this is from Cap Fin. Do we have anybody from Cap Fin here? Are you the Cap Fin guy? All right, Mike, you're on. Welcome, Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, after doing like five,
You
six,
know, I'm gonna
six
learn,
bills yesterday.
what I'm gonna learn to do is ask who's here on which bill so that I can decide whether I do want to put them first or last, I think.
6 bills yesterday, a $9 billion budget, and then 3 bills that I'm running. When it gets to this one, I don't even remember what this bill was about, so I can't really speak to it. So somebody's gonna have to either help me or we're gonna have to lay this back and get
Okay.
some folks here who can help me out do it. So I don't know, Don, if you wanna
Who's
try to
involved
take it, but
who's been
or if you
involved?
just wanna
Okay.
run.
Welcome back.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, Don Williams, Deputy State Treasurer. This bill is at the impetus of the Capital Select Committee on Capital Financing and Investments, designed to remove the inviolate nature of the both the Wyoming Natural Resource Trust account and the Cultural Trust Fund. And what that means is that we would be moving these funds, and I'm, speaking as the Wildlife and Natural Resource, the whole proper name. And so we'd be removing their inviolate nature, removing them from Pool A where they're currently invested, and allowing their investment to be participatory in the total return strategy that we are moving to this summer. And as you know, that's more modeled after the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, that model. And I think that I will pass it over to my colleague who's taking a drink of coffee there to talk to you about the more specific nature of the mechanics of doing that. But that's it in a summary. It's just modifying the way that we invest these funds and creating a spending policy. We would still have a reserve account, but we are, instead of maintaining a separate reserve and an income account, we would just be combining one account for those two purposes, because each of these funds operates out of that income account. They have their operating expenditures, which include their grant-making authority as well. And so that's how we're moving forward with this, and I'll pass it to Patrick to fill in the blank.
Well, I'm with you all the way. I just want to ask real quickly.
Mhm.
When you say inviolate to me, that means the corpus cannot be appropriated by the legislature.
Mr. Chairman, that's how it is statutorily right now.
And so we're going to change that, or are we just going to say that they could potentially lose money in the corpus, but we're not going to allow the legislature to appropriate out of these funds, are we?
Correct, Mr. Chairman. So that removing that inviolate nature allows them to be invested in these longer term investments, the equities that we were just talking about, similar to
Oh, I see, because it's total return. You don't know whether you're invading corpus or not.
Mr. Chairman, it's possible that your corpus could be invaded, but if the account remains inviolate, that would not be an option for this
Gotcha.
this account to be participatory there.
Okay, so let's turn it over to Patrick. Thanks,
Okay.
Don.
Mr. Chairman, Patrick Fleming, CO. Thank you, Don. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. So the purpose of this is to really move towards that endowment strategy. And without a reserve account, you are not able to have that type of asset allocation, which we know is anywhere from 200 to 300 basis points more than when you have to have a spending policy that that you're just going to have higher income bearing securities. So the purpose of this would be to grow the funds at a higher return, but the inviolate nature, which is an endowment model, allows them to still spend. As long as you have that fixed spending policy on it, they're able to spend it, but it will come out of the corpus if you have a down year. It still allows them to spend. This is known throughout the industry, all kinds of academic research, as you know, Mr. Chairman, very well, that this is a much better way to manage money than having an inviolate corpus without being able to spend it. So with that, the structure of the bill, because of both of these funds received a fair amount of income coming in over the last year, we didn't want to have the spending policy at a level of a 5-year average because it would be much lower. So what we did, as you can read in the bill, the first year would be the 1 year, the next year would be 2 years and 3 years, 4 years and 5 years. so we can use that higher corpus level to make sure that they can spend. We've spent a significant amount of time with both of the boards here, and we talked about income needs. Mr. Budd, who's in attendance, he has spoken about the needs that they'd have, and that 4% spend seems to be at a level that they would be able to live with. And in the Cultural Resource Trust at 3% was the same number. So with that, we still believe that these funds can compound at a higher rate than that and still fulfill their spending needs. And then that would roll over into the income account, and then the income account would be able to pay off the bills. So with that, this is kind of the first step in trying to move some of the funds into much more of an endowment strategy to try and achieve a higher return. And this will take many years to implement. But it would be the first step into doing this. And we feel that this is a great strategy to allow these funds to still fulfill their spending needs while hopefully getting a higher return.
Just a comment, thank you. It all comes flooding back to me now. I got it now. I remember. This is the first in what we will call later a suite of bills to try
Well, I will
to try
tell
to
you
start
this,
moving this way.
I spent a lot of time in investment conferences, and I've spent a lot of time on CapFin. I mean, I'm on board on this thing. I'm ready to go. So thank you, the department. I'll open it up to public comment. We got 3 minutes. I'd like to kick this bill down to the floor. Anyone comment? Want a public comment? Anyone? Anyone? I'll close public comment. It's to the committee.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or amendments? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Grew.
Aye.
Senator Salazar has registered his I vote, and Chairman Kinsky.
Aye. That concludes our business, our agenda. We will carry over until the next meeting, the re-referral of 13. Meeting adjourned.